you get to interact with the same person, but you're taking it from different roles. So you get that first impression over and over again. And also, in some ways, I feel like there's a benefit to this in the real world, and it can actually make you better at giving first impressions and just interacting with other people because you've been doing a lot of practicing.
I'm Nerdarchy Ted.
I'm Nerdarchy Steve. Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds.
So what are we talking about today, Dave?
So today we're talking about RPGs, first impressions, building relationships. Like, this whole thing was inspired by you and Nerdator Doug had did the Monday live chat, and the topic was relationships because it was Valentine's Day. Makes sense.
Sure.
So I don't know, I guess you guys are getting all romantical and stuff on there. But that's not what this video is about. But it did inspire it when I was writing the newsletter, because there's something that happens in role-playing games that I can't think of that happens anywhere else.
Is that going to be first impressions?
That is first impressions. And just, the ability to build relationships with the same people over and over again with different dynamics.
And those kind of things are a lot of fun, that you get to explore, animosity and friendship. And, if you want to go that far, actual romantic relationships and those elements, whatever you want to explore at your table is just flippin' awesome.
Hate, love, and everything in between, pretty much. So this can essentially happen in two ways. So you can either have player-to-player relationships that you build throughout the game with various characters that you play, various characters that other players play, or you can have this where it's NPC to player, so you are building this relationship with different non-player characters that the DM is running.
And these things that kind of get built, they show not only character growth, but potential personal growth if you're able to extrapolate and make correlations in your own real world setting.
For sure. Speaking of settings, if you want to add something more to your setting, I think it's time for us to mention our sponsor for a upcoming Kickstarter, Bergen's Book of Beasts.
So this is by Penny Dragon, the same people that brought you the Mag of Holding. It comes along with 200 plus new beasts to add into your game, whether you're looking for wild shapes, animal companions, familiars, you name it, it's there. A lot of options to choose from, but that's not all. There's going to be over 20 beast-related magic items, as well as 12 new subclasses that are beastly themed for your Bergen's Book of Beasts.
And don't forget, if you happen to sign up in the first 48 hours, you get a freebie.
So within that, as long as you're getting the physical rewards, you're going to be able to get Firestar Falling. That's going to be a full print release adventure to add into your own game.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the description either for the sign up or for the Kickstarter itself so that you can check it out.
All right, so I guess, first let's explore player-to-player interaction and how, you brought up the ability to kind of repeat that, getting to know you experience.
Yeah, first impressions. In real life, you generally get one crack at it. And, I can't think of any other place or any other environment in the real world where this can happen. Even acting and actors, they're going off a script, right? So they're not really building or developing this relationship. It's already been kind of predetermined.
Unless you're doing improv, and then pretty much role-playing and improv go hand in hand. So that's I think, the closest, sibling of this.
Yeah, so I don't think there's any other opportunity where, you get to interact with the same person, but you're taking it from different roles, so you get that first impression over and over again. And also, in some ways, I feel like there's a benefit to this in the real world, and it can actually make you better at giving first impressions and just interacting with other people because you've been doing a lot of practicing.
That's absolutely right. And you've got these moments to kind of, let's face it, if you're playing, role-playing games, you're probably doing so with your friends who, for some of them, probably have known you for a long time. So here's where you can kind of explore, all of the different relationship options. Do you want to have somebody that's very antagonistic, and that, okay, when we're at the table, you and I are going to do this thing, but once we close the books and put the dice away, none of the things that could be problematic or hurtful are going to leave the table, and your friendship just kind of resumes. So like you can push those boundaries with the people that you essentially love and care about, and allow those dynamics to kind of change. And like I've seen these kind of things happen over the games. I mean, literally one of the people that I've been gaming with for decades, we played a game a number of years ago, and he told me afterwards, is like, oh yeah, when I made my character, I was totally into dudes, and I was going to hit on whoever had the highest charisma. That happened to be my character. I never picked up on it, but anytime my character needed healing, anytime my character, needed something, he was right there with it. And I thought that was hysterical. And I was just clueless.
So you learned something very important about Ted. If you're going to hit on him, be very obvious or he's not going to get it. But also he's married, so don't be too obvious in front of his wife. That's definitely a dynamic that can be explored at the table. It's not something that we really get into very much. We don't really do too much romance and interpersonal, and we black screen a lot of that stuff. Sure. For the most part, but there's all kinds of different relationships. Family, there's familiar family. There is, just friendship. There's frenemies, and I feel like we've run the gambit, and it can just be fun to explore those different things with people that you've played with before in the past, and it just kind of like keeps it fresh and new and changes up the dynamic. I always hear about online where there's groups where they like D&D is their excuse to get together and flirt with all their friends, or like they're part of a polycule and they all play D&D, so like they have this ability to take that into their games and play with it, and that might not be for everybody, but if it's something you want to explore, like it's kind of a good space to do it in.
Yeah, and I can't agree more.
With consent.
With consent, yeah. I mean, when you look at things like Critical Role, I don't know how much they talk off camera about is there a relationship that we want to kind of develop? But you see, friendships emerge. You see, friendships get tested. You see relationships develop over the course of the entire campaign through both, campaign 1 and 2. I haven't seen any, budding relationships in campaign 3 as of yet, but we're still pretty early on for that to happen. It's like, so whether it be, hey, look, I'm just going to show up and make this happen, whether you're looking at building a friendship or like a bona fide romantic relationship, you can still do those things and like build that up. But, when it comes to the first impressions, that get changed, literally just this past weekend, we were playing a game of Shadow of the Demon Lord, five PCs in the group. 2 of them died in one encounter, utterly brutal and deadly. Well, one of the players in the group decided, we have an NPC captive. He's like, I'm just going to play that dude. I'm Jason. And I'm like, holy crap, I've just spent the last 2 sessions
shitting on that character.
Shitting on this character.
Yeah.
And now he's going to be a PC. How do I, not retcon, because I can't change what has already happened, but how do we get to a moment where this guy is going to be okay with me and I'm going to be okay with them? So like, this is going to take work for me to really trust this person and to accept them. But I have to build that relationship because the person is my friend out of game, and I don't want it to be like, nah, this is the dynamic. I'm just going to shit all over you the entire game. Yeah,
well, I mean, it does create an interesting spot in the relationship for it to build and evolve. And, in the real world, that's what generally happens anyway. One way or the other, people grow together, people grow apart. Just from my own experience, and I've heard you kind of lament over this as well. As you get older, you grow apart from some of those childhood friends. I only really interact with a couple of them, and the rest, like, I have no idea what's happened to them. So, and then you meet new people come into your life and you build relationships with them. Well, it's not any different in RPGs. And also, like that game you're talking about, it's kind of fun to see where the relationship goes. Because it's only been a couple sessions where we've been introduced to Jason, and maybe Jason will save your life or something. Or he'll remember how crappy you were to him. Look the other way. He doesn't even have to actually do anything.
Well, so I mean, like, I did take a moment, and when he decided, like, oh, well, there is something for us to fight, and I'm going to stand in front and be like, oh, So this guy's not just all garbage.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, the person was a bandit. They attacked the caravan that we were supposed to be guarding. So like they were a bad guy from the get-go. So like it was understandable. And then we did shitty things to him. We took all of his stuff and what have you. So like the comical, typical moronic 12-year-old nonsense that most RPGers get up to. Like, all right, this is a thing. But now, not repairing, but figuring out what the new dynamic is going to be will be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I feel like even during the course of that, like, those couple sessions, Jason as an NPC has been growing. We found out that he had a fouled farm and he turned to banditry out of desperation. He's got a son and, which we found out he's older than we initially thought he was. But, his son would definitely be ashamed of him being a bandit and not a farmer. And he actually lied to his son. Hard times.
But since we're talking about NPCs, I guess we can talk about player to NPC interaction as well.
Yeah, for sure. Because in that particular case, the relationship started as an NPC, and it gave the player kind of fodder to use when developing their character. Mm-hmm. In fact, like Shadow of the Demon Lord has professions that you kind of start with. You get 2 of them, and which was perfect because he's like farmer, bandit, done. Right? So it worked out to like flesh out that character, right? Also in that game, you pick you don't have a character class to start. You just have your ancestry or race or species. It's like easy enough. Jason's human. I'm playing a human, right? And then, the player is able to take the role-playing cues from what happened as an NPC with that character, which initially was us role-playing with the DM.
And that informed everything he needed, but he decided to go a step further and randomly roll just to see if there's anything that was kind of hidden. And everything was just like middle of the road, boring as can be rolls for this particular character, which easily led into all the things that we wound up seeing. So it was pretty fantastic. But I mean, this is, we've been gaming for, more than 3 decades at this point in time. So there's loads of different individual relationships that can start off, on a high note that go low, or start off on a low note and, get improved. I think the most, the most growth that I've seen of a PC to NPC interaction was in the Curse of Narcitus game that I ran, where like you were dead set as Uthengar of winning over this elven librarian. So Anna Lassalar, ran the elven library within the town of Gryffindor, and with Uthengar being a wizard, he's like, nah, I'm gonna make this dude like me. And I, determined right away that this was gonna be your typical elf, does not like dwarves, as did other elves in the library, but this guy was like, all right, I am dead set this way. And Uthengar changed his mind over the many sessions, the many interactions.
The course of 5-year campaign.
But it was great to see, like, all right, Uthengar wanted to be not a typical dwarf, and he made that change, and I thought, he's doing gifts, he's actually intelligent and learning and taking advice and offering up, not his own wise counsel, but his own understanding, as opposed to like, okay, I have to treat this like a stupid student. It's like, no, this guy actually is getting what I'm saying.
No wizard splaining involved from Uthengar.
No wizard splaining. So like, it was great to just see this ever so slowly change. And, whether you want to come up with your own system, whether you want to build upon the system within Strixhaven for, building relationships and earning relationship points with other NPCs, having something to show character to character growth between player and NPC is something that really allows the game to live and breathe and be something more than just what happens at the table, but it makes these stories that live on for years and can, again, dictate your own personal relationships in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, Uthengar was a lot of fun, and like there was a couple things when it came to, NPCs and building relationships that he would generally do. One of which was like he did seek out other NPCs with knowledge and like to befriend them, but also he was a smith at heart. So whenever he rolled into a new town, he would generally look for the blacksmith just to talk shop. It's like a dude throws up the hood in their car in the neighborhood, and other guys just start wandering over.
It's like, what you got there?
To see what's going on. Yeah, kind of a little bit of that going on. Like he even ended up getting married because legacy was very important to him in the clan. So it was fun to take these little personality traits that particular character had and to weave them into my interactions with the NPCs, and build it as time went on. And even with that character too, there was a lot of things I just kind of did intuitively. Like he had this special dwarven owl that he would get whenever he would go back to his clan hold. And he would usually use that as kind of like an icebreaker or an opener to try and interact with different people. Right. So it's fun to develop your character and how they interact with other people around them, and then seeing how those people interact with them, right, and how they affect them.
Because what it really does is it's going to build the immersion and create that atmosphere. Like if you treat your character as if they're really alive and interact with everyone else as if they're alive, and not just be like, oh yes, you are the quest giver, please give me only the details I need. I don't care about your family. Let's move on. I watch videos that, kind of, almost mock the video game mentality of skip. Okay. Let me get back to killing things. Like the actual role playing that happens between those characters is what makes it more immersive of a game and makes it, that much more alive. And if that particular style isn't meant for you, well, then, that's your style game. For us, I love that stuff. I adore the sessions where I'm like, all right, we get to show up and build those relationships, whether it's, between player to player or, player to NPC.
Yeah, as the DM or GM in the game, you get to try on a lot of different fits, and when it comes to NPCs, and you can go as shallow as or as deep as you need to, depending on what the circumstances call for, how often this NPC is going to show up. You can go a little deeper every time that particular NPC shows up, and kind of build. Even in the game that I ran, that the Gobblos were in, and your Cleric of Knowledge was in. I introduced this kind of crazy old lady that people kind of thought, maybe, she was in mental decline or something, but she was relatively harmless and also rich. Right. and I just I slowly introduced this character and they would show up and they took a shine to the Gobblos, and they took a shine to her in return. And the reason why she liked them is because they're goblins and they're little, and she had lost her children, and she, and it reminded her of her children. And through playing a lot of sessions, she would have moments of clarity and reveal that she actually wasn't quite as crazy as she appeared to be. It was more of just something she did to kind of deal with her grief and and how to get over that. And eventually she ended up leaving the Gobblos her estates and everything that she owned. And they had a moment where she was actually on her deathbed, and they kind of were called to her. And one of the players actually cried at the table, because this, they called her Moms.
Moms, yeah.
Yeah, and Moms had been in a lot of sessions, in the background, and also her manservant butler. I think they called him Jeeves or something. I don't even know if that was his real name or not, but it kind of stuck. And they would torment him to no end.
Because while Moms love the antics of the Gobblos.
He was very prim and proper.
He was the the upstanding gentleman who did not particularly care for it, but he worked for Moms, and therefore what she wanted, he went with. And once things passed to the Gobblos, it's well, I guess I work for you now.
Yes, and then one of the Gobblos had 3 children or something that ended up there as well.
The half orc, half goblin children.
And a baby's mama, right? So So that all showed up, and now poor Jeeves. Yeah, but like these are the things that we get to explore when we play role-playing games. No matter what side of the screen you're on, whether you're the GM or you're the player, you get to try on these different personalities, and then get to see how they mesh with different NPCs and different players.
Yeah. So whether you're a player, whether you're a GM, you get to put on these hats. Step into different emotions, step into different relationships, and really see, what is out there to really, play with and explore. Whether you're looking to explore a new side of yourself, when you start a new character, or whether you're trying to work through something, these relationships, these things can be built, can be beneficial, not only for the camaraderie at the table, but, as I said, for your own personal life as well.
Let us know how, building relationships and relationships have affected you, both in the game and out of the game, in the comments below. Share your thoughts, ideas, and theories with the Nerdarchy community.
While you're down there, don't forget to do all those fun things that make Nerdarchy and YouTube happy. Like, share, subscribe, even go ahead and attune to that notification bell so you don't miss a single video.
Quick reminder, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we drop new videos here on the channel, so come on back. But you can't wait till then. No worries, we got you covered. There's a card up here you can check out. We did a video on playing well with others in RPGs, a D&D player's tip.
So until next time, stay nerdy.